want to welcome you all to Brainstorm Chat on virtual volunteering. We have 18 people registered, but there are only 7 people who are online, and that's not unusual on Zoom organizations. And if we don't get too many more people online, I want you to know up front that I've asked 3 people, Tori, Carrie, and Jessica O'Donnell, to help us with breakout rooms. But if we have just this many people, we probably won't need it. What I'm going to do is officially show you. I'm going to share my screen with what I have as the outline for today, just so you can see what the plan was. Obviously we'll do introductions, and I'm going to have you maybe go back through and talk about, what you were doing now and what's working for you virtually. And then I want us to I sent you something from Volunteer Match that listed virtual volunteer opportunities. There were over 1 million of them on Volunteer Match, and just to get some ideas, because I'm hoping we can brainstorm on maybe ways to create some virtual opportunities we haven't thought about, or at least steal ideas from each other about who's doing what. And then, how do you manage virtual volunteers? It's a different thing. And then we'll look at the whole recruit, retain, reward piece of it at the end. So I'm going to get rid of this, stop sharing, so we can at least see each other and maybe talk to each other today. I'm going to ask Jill to go ahead and start and just kind of talk to us about who you're with, what you're doing, what virtual opportunities you have. And those of you who want to take notes and steal ideas, that's the whole advantage of having a group together, because I think as a group, we have more and better ideas than we just have alone. And hopefully as a group, we got more power in coming up with those creative ideas than we do by ourselves. So I want to thank all of you for adding your intellect and expertise to this venture today. Jill,
okay.
please start.
Sure. My name's Jill Rodriguez, and I'm with the El Rio Foundation. We work for El Rio Health. And are you all familiar with El Rio Health? Have you seen our buildings and our signs and that kind of thing? We're a community health center, and we provide primary medical and dental care to about 113,000 individuals in Tucson.
Wow.
And I'm lucky enough to work in the foundation, which is a separate 501c3 than El Rio Health. But we're all one big organization, and there are 5 of us in the foundation, and we have a young professional group called the Vecinos, and there are 40 young professionals under the age of 40 years old, and they provide volunteer services for us primarily in fundraising. And prior to COVID, their mode of operation had been to host one big party every year called the Vecinos Block Party. And it brings in about 1,000 people, netted around $116,000. And now with COVID, they're having to change plans and get involved in other types of fundraisers. So we've been meeting with them virtually through committee meetings and through business meetings and executive meetings on Zoom. And we've struggled to try to keep them engaged with what's going on in the organization, because they're used to the one-on-one, hands-on opportunity to be together. So I'm really looking for some ideas from all of you, just, if there's anything we can do to help keep them engaged during this time. And once the party planning starts, then they'll be fairly busy again, but it's all being done virtually now.
I think we need to get used to this virtual thing. I think we need to ramp up and get used to it. I don't think it's going to go away.
No, I don't.
And how do you raise funds virtually? You know, how do you put on galas virtually?
Right. Well, we have a gala scheduled for October 23rd, and we are going to go virtual with that. And what we're going to do is to host more of a telethon where we're reaching out to people that would have been at the gala, asking for their support.
What a
Saying,
neat idea.
yeah. So we're going to use the vecinos, about 25 of them, to help us make phone calls that evening. And we'll do a portion of the event live from the Manning House. And we'll also have some external parties going on around town, where there'll be house parties for some of our board members and donors. And we may, be able to pan into some of those, or at least show pictures from those parties as well. So that's what we're looking to do, to pivot from a traditional gala.
Now, what technology are you going to use for that?
Well, that's a really good question. We haven't gotten into that part of it yet, but we'll start. We have to meet with our board on the 16th of August, and once we get the blessing to move forward, we will. We've done a lot of work with Matt George at Commotion Studios. I don't know if you all know him or not, but he now offers a virtual service, so I'm sure we'll be consulting with him, and he'll be helping us create videos that we're going to play as well. So we're just getting into the technology piece now.
And, that's the part that is going to take all of us, and maybe those of us with gray hair more than those of us without.
Mine's all colored.
Okay, time to ramp up, because there are so many things coming online, to take advantage of this virtual piece. And I'll share one with you later, but I think that'll be interesting to see how the fundraising goes, because that's a big piece of what has to be done. So it sounds like you're doing some exciting things, Jill.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's fun. I love what I do.
Yeah, you can tell. Tori, how about you? What's happening at Interfaith? You're back at the job, huh? Tori fell off a bike a couple months ago.
So yeah,
did a whole bunch of damage to herself physically. So we are so glad to see her smiling, healthy face right now.
thank you. Yeah, this is my first SAVMA gig in a long time. Yeah, that was a strange little scenario. I did fall off my bike. I broke ribs and collarbone and pelvis. And so I'm recovered mostly and had a concussion. And then my husband fell off his bike 5 weeks later and broke his hip, and so had a hip replaced. So we're just kind of finishing navigating.
I thought maybe your bikes would be for sale.
Well, ironically, we just got a stationary bike Saturday, and I tell you, it has really helped. It's ironic because the motion of the stationary bike has really helped my healing. I was having a lot of leg pain and stuff, and it really helped balance out the pelvis and stuff. So it's probably too much more information than you really want to know, but weird things. I'm doing well. And Interfaith has never closed. So I'm back to working full-time virtually. I actually left in mid-March to start virtual work. I hadn't been feeling well and thought I had COVID. It didn't turn out to be that, but we're on partial remote. So a third of the staff are working remotely. No, I'm sorry, the other way. A third of the staff are working in the office. 2/3 are working remotely, but we've never closed. Because our services are food for the community and critical services for seniors in their homes, we still have people needing help and people wanting to help. So the food bank, we've done a lot of shifts, as you guys I'm sure have done too, a lot of these pivots to accommodate the new social situation. So the food bank is outside distribution, and that keeps going. We have the 2 sites, East and Northwest, and going really well. And then a lot of the volunteers are still wanting to help seniors take them grocery shopping, or mostly they do grocery shopping for them. Some people will want to have somebody in the backseat of their car and they're all masked, and they'll take them to critical doctor appointments, not virus related, but just dialysis or chemo or things like that. So we are still continuing things. We have a lot on hold because we're not going into people's homes. Mobile meals is being delivered to coolers outside the home. So we've made all those necessary adaptations and adjustments. So that's what we're doing. We're keeping going.
So you're still doing almost person-to-person service, but with the distance that you need to do.
Yes. So the outside distributions are just that, right? The people working in the food bank, they stay distant from each other with all their protective gear on. And basically when somebody comes to the drive-through, they get a cart wheeled out to them, and then the food gets put in their trunk. So they don't have the opportunity to shop, which has been a really nice hallmark for ICS, that personal touch, but they get food. So.
Are you doing anything virtually other
We
than your
are,
jobs? Yeah.
We are, yeah. We
What are
are.
you doing?
I've held Volunteer Appreciation Week with calls virtually. We've done check-in calls with people. We've done a lot of meetings. All our meetings are virtual. We're not meeting in the office. So yeah, so we're getting to know not only Zoom, but Teams. Internally, we use Microsoft Teams. And then a lot of other, let me think. Yeah, a lot of people are just we're doing everything virtually, Diane. So yeah.
Pretty much, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wendy Worden just came online. Wendy says, "Hi all, I get better connection if I have my camera off and on mute, but I'm here listening." Wendy, we're going to ask you at some point just to talk a little bit about where you're from and what you're doing virtually and who you're serving. So if you want to go into the chat and do it on chat, you certainly can. But if you, and I'll be glad to read it to people. So, but we're glad you're here. So please make yourself comfortable in any way you can. I'll give you time to decide what you're going to do. But anyway, hopefully she'll, give us a little background. Carrie, do you want to talk about the zoo and you?
Sure. The name of our newsletter. So we have been closed to the public since March 17th, so we're going on month 5. Staff, obviously, still critical staff need to be at the zoo because those animals still need to be fed every day and looked after. So animal care staff have continued working as normal for the last 5 months. Anybody who is able to work from home, so staff in education, volunteer services, admin, all of those folks have been working remotely for that length of time, and docents and other volunteers have been out of the zoo for that long. We recently, well, I would say within the last month, we're able to get our animal care volunteers back into the zoo with making sure that they're following the same precautions that staff do, wearing masks, they have to take their temperature before they enter the zoo. They have to stay 6 feet at least away from other people. They cannot work with any of the animals that are COVID possible, that are susceptible to COVID, so that restricts some of that. But mainly we have kept people engaged virtually, remotely. So we have morning meetings every day of the week, except Mondays, at 8:30, just to keep in touch with everybody, and we get updates from staff who are on ground so that we can give those updates to our volunteers. When we do reopen, it will be very limited as far as our interpretive volunteers are considered, because we don't want situations where we're creating points that people are gathering. We want to maintain that distance, that physical distance. So very few positions as far as volunteering goes when we reopen. We have webcams that our volunteers have always run from home wherever they are. So that has always been an option this entire time for volunteers to do. We've expanded a little bit into using volunteers to call donors and thank donors, knowing that a lot of our volunteers are those donors. So it's kind of a kick to get a phone call from your fellow volunteer to say thank you. And we too have an event coming up, our major fundraiser, Zooson, in October. They've been working to move that to a sort of not half and half, but maybe mostly virtual with some in-zoo contact. And instead of a price point where you've got your member and your non-member pricing, we just have 3 separate ticket prices, sort of a VIP sponsor ticket pricing for those organizations or individuals who actually want to be in the zoo, limiting it to probably 200 people rather than 800 plus that we usually get. And then another ticket price, which is a VIP ticket. And part of Zooson is that we have lots of restaurants that donate food and people walk around and eat from all those places. So very limited number of restaurants in the zoo, but with a VIP ticket, they would get special like hors d'oeuvres and drinks delivered to their houses, and then they attend the event virtually. So we have volunteers who will be doing a lot of that delivery of that special price point to people. And then we have a really low cost, the $25 rate. This is usually a $200 some event per person, that they will be able to just attend the virtual part of it. They don't get that extra hors d'oeuvre and drink portion of it. And then this year what they're doing, we always had a silent and live auction that go along with it. The silent auction will be open to anyone. You don't even need a ticket to be able to bid. So we're hoping that will reach a whole new group of people that have not been either able to afford to come to Zooson in the past or have chosen not to for some reason. And that will be all done online. So we have a company that will support bidding by text. So you have to be.
What company are you using? What company?
I know that we have our events department working on that, so I'm not sure what company they are, but I can find that out for you if you want.
Okay, because that's something other people might need to know. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not supplying anybody to be at the zoo because obviously they want to maintain a physical distance, but they're doing the technical support as far as being that platform that you can text your bid. It evidently alerts you when you've been outbid. So if you want to bid again, so that's going to be pretty fun. And then, so that's in the works. They'll probably do portions that are taped and then portions that are live for that event. And we just continue to look for more options for our volunteers across the board for things they can do from home. We have a lot of folks who can make enrichment for the animals. So that's building items that the animals can have. It could be building nest boxes, could be sewing blankets once we get cooler, and then pouches that animals can get into. So we've got a lot of those things, but yeah, if anybody has any ideas, because we definitely are sort of a more on the ground volunteer pool than virtual. So we're trying to think of all sorts of things that they can do.
I have some questions to ask you, and maybe others do too, but you talked about reducing your volunteers when you open. How do you decide which ones you're keeping and which ones you're not?
We're not reducing our number of volunteers, just the positions available. So we have shifts that they sign up for using Better Impact, which is our volunteer management system. And it's a self-selecting, you get to figure out what position you want to sign up for. Initially, because we don't have any of those interpretive volunteer positions, our docents, who is our largest group of volunteers, will have option to help with these other activities that aren't necessarily interpretive. So initially, it's just going to be counting people in and out of our Expedition Tanzania area, which is the elephants, because we can't have more than 120 or some people in there at once, and only 4 positions a day. So the 300 volunteers are going to have to fight for that. We have asked them that they sign up for just one shift to start with to give more people a chance to get a shift. And then if they see spaces that are open, then they can sign up for more shifts that way. But then we also give our volunteers free admission to the zoo. So if they can't get their fix by volunteering, they're still welcome to come to the zoo as a guest. So
But I thought you were closed.
that's when we open.
Oh, when you reopen.
Yeah.
So you've already started to plan a staged
Oh
reopening.
yeah. We've been planning for like 3 months.
Do you have a date? Are you going to do
No.
it for this? Okay, but you're going to have people there for your event in October, right?
Correct. Yes. We're thinking by the end of this month. Excuse me.
Okay. Okay. I hope that's true.
Yeah, because we're still infrastructure. It's sort of like a tenant situation with the city of Tucson. We have to abide by their orders. So if they say no city of Tucson buildings open, that includes the zoo. So we got redesignated as a park, an outside entity. So that changes it a little bit. And we still have to be inspected by the city manager, the COVID response team, the Pima County COVID response team. Then we have to get approval from mayor and council. So that's all being worked on this week.
Wow. Wow. Does anybody else have questions for the people that have talked so far? Because we're kind of halfway through.
I just wondered what the date of the fundraiser was.
Ours is October 2nd.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
When is yours, Jill?
October 23rd.
Oh, good. You got a couple weeks in there.
Yeah. Not on top of each other.
Yeah, so, you wonder what platforms both of you are going to use to do your galas or your events. Are you using Zoom or Meets or another?
I think we're going to use Facebook Live.
Okay, Facebook Live. Yeah. What about you, Carrie?
Again, I'm not sure. I think they're doing some by Zoom, but I'm just emailing our events director to see if she can get me answers before we're done.
Ooh, you're a sweetheart. Yeah, you're a sweetheart. I know some pre-record and pull things off YouTube. I mean, there are lots of different ways to do it. And just keeping up with the new technology, I think, is a piece of what's going on. Any other questions for people? Jessica, we know we saw your daughter, and it's always delightful to see children and animals in the background. So just know it's a delightful face to see. I know it kind of freaked you out, but
it's my niece actually.
Okay.
she's visiting for the week, so.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk next? Tell us what
Yeah.
you're doing.
So I'm Jessica O'Donnell. I'm with Lutheran Social Services of the Southwest. And right now, we do have employees who are going into the office for that critical care position. So for our direct care workers and our Meals on Wheels team, they're going in. But as far as volunteering, we have shifted quite a bit of our roles to virtual volunteering. So we just started doing virtual tutoring for refugee students. It's still new since the kids are getting, back into school and the rhythm of that, but we do have that support if they need extra help with tutoring. We have virtual card making to send to older adults to let them know that, we're all in this together. And then we are also looking for new virtual opportunities just so people can still be involved and engaged in the community. But I'd say those are our two biggest ones right now. And hopefully in the fall for our Days of Caring, we're planning on doing a yard work day. That way you can still social distance, you can do it with your family and go to older adults and help clean their yard.
Oh, what a good idea.
Yeah, hopefully it will work, but it seems like it's the perfect thing for this, especially, it will cool down a little bit so people can be outside for longer than 10 minutes. And, I know my yard needs help, so I can only imagine those who have, limited mobility. So to help the community a little.
That is a good idea. Any questions for her? Like, how do you do your card making? How does that work?
Yeah, so we've had one virtual card making party where we've gotten a couple of people and just had a prompt in the background of different notes of people, and people just wrote and we listened to music, and people are talking about their day. Other times I've just sent them where to send it and who they might be going to if they want to personalize it, and they just send them themselves and then send us a package of cards, and we give them to our direct care workers, or we put them in food boxes that we've been delivering.
Wow. So what works better, sending them the cards or the wine card making event?
Well, I think they're both good. We've only had one virtual, happy hour making cards, and it went really well, but we're actually having 2 more coming up. And so it'll be interesting to see what does work better. But we've gotten people who have found us on Volunteer Match from all over the country. We had someone send us, she had her class write cards from Hawaii. And it was just really cool to see that. Yeah, we've had a couple from New York. And so it's just like people want to do something but still be safe. And that's a really good way to, especially if you're artsy and crafty, and like that stuff.
Now, do they provide their own cards then, right?
Yep. Yeah, they make their own cards. We're also thinking of doing that as an option for Days of Caring, and maybe sending like little bundles to those who are in the Southern Arizona region of supplies, and just a very small bundle, but like to thank them and to get them involved. So.
Wow. When people can't meet with other people, to do something like that with a group, I think would really be a great way to cement and retain volunteers who would look for you again to do things with you in that way, because they have a group of people who kind of value the same things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you
And
surprised to get people from Hawaii and New York?
yeah, when I got the email and they're like, well, I'm a teacher and I really want to get my class involved in this during the summer. And I was like, great, and I told them, I sent them, I was like, well, you can drop them off at the office, you could mail them. And they're like, well, I'm in Hawaii. I was like, okay, well, you can email me them if you want, and I'll print them out. So it was kind of funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
What fun that would be. Okay. And virtual tutoring, is it just one-on-one tutoring or what?
So right now it is. We used to have volunteers go in to Catalina High School and do after-school tutoring with our refugee population. Not just our clients, but anyone who wanted to go in that community could go and do the tutoring. So now we're trying to figure out if it's going to be one-on-one. We also are continuing our mentoring program with refugees, so that's definitely a one-on-one opportunity. But depending on how many volunteers we get and how many students are needing it, it might go to, maybe a 3 or 4 math and then English, and divide them that way. But right now it is one-on-one.
One of the interesting things that I've seen with doing virtual volunteering is people that have a hard time with transportation, but they can get to a hot spot. It opens it up to more people who could use your services. I mean, who would have thought, that, because transportation is sometimes a big problem for people.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of the refugee population too, they weren't just coming from Catalina, they were coming from Tucson High or other schools. So just taking the bus there. So it should help, and it will be interesting to see how it goes. I'm not sure how the volunteers will respond to it quite yet, but I think it's a great opportunity. I'm excited for it.
Wow. Well, you're doing some fun things.
Yeah.
Donna, I know you started to talk earlier, and I'm hoping you'll repeat some of the things that some of the new people online haven't heard yet.
Okay.
That would be great, because you're with
Right.
Yeah.
My name is Donna Derrick. I am the volunteer coordinator and office manager for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Southern Arizona. Relatively new to this job, October, and I came in cold, no training. But
Oh, welcome to the real world, right?
yeah, I decided to start a new career at 67.
Wow. Wow.
Anyway, we've kind of been like a fish out of water for a while because our director retired last year, and they had an interim director that was here for a while, and then they hired somebody who never really started, and then we were without anybody until about a month ago. So maybe now we will have some focus and leadership on, you know, where she wants to take us and how we're going to do this. But since the office was closed, I've not been able to have any volunteers into the office. And my primary use for them is helping folding flyers that we distribute, and receptionist and miscellaneous duties around here. The biggest thing that I use volunteers for is for my community outreach tables, where we take a table and our material and somebody who's knowledgeable about NAMI's services out into the community when they're having health fairs or whatever. So there have been absolutely zero opportunities for that. And we're finally getting on board with using Zoom for family support groups and for Ending the Silence program, which goes out into the schools, the school population. And there's a couple of branches of that. One is a speaker under the age of 35 will talk to kids, that telling them what their mental illness was like while they were in school and their age and how they dealt with it, and encouraging communication and so on. And the other part of the Ending the Silence program is for people to work with the educators and help them with ways to get the kids to open up. And then we have a program that we're associated with, but we don't sponsor it. It's called Text Talk. And Text Talked and something, but the kids use it. So they're able to go to, you know, just talk to people and get it out right then when they need to. We have our peer-to-peer course, which can lead to a certified peer support specialist, and that is going strong. I took the class last time and it was really good.
So that's a virtual class.
It's all virtual, yes.
Okay.
And our basics class, which we just a lack of funding, we got a grant for it. So the basics is for parents that have an underage child with a mental illness, and it helps them to understand how to cope with, deal with, communicate with, and how to self-care. So that's starting in September. That class is full, but if anybody wants to join it, you can get on the waiting list for the next one. And then I think that's all we're doing right now on Zoom, except our staff meetings. And we have what's called a weekly cafecito, which is just everybody from the office gets on and just chats and stays in touch. It helps to engage, you know, the people that are at home and isolated more than the folks that are here in the office. The class that I'm really excited about getting going under Zoom, they have traditionally taught it in person, never allowing it to be an online or an internet course. Well, they've now said, okay, we can do this. And they've reduced it from a 12-week program to an 8-week program. And I am one of the only people that's like certified to teach it. So I'm really excited about that. I personally need help with figuring out a way to engage my volunteers that I can't have in the office, and I have no place for them to go. I don't know what to do. For National Volunteer Month or Week, you know, I sent out a special message, but I've just been frustrated with not knowing where to go from here, what to do, how to reach out and get a response, because I haven't gotten responses. So if anybody can help, I would really appreciate it. Have any questions?
Are these
Could your
volunteers,
volunteers
Donna,
cards?
Sorry?
are these a cadre of volunteers that you've used before and you have email addresses before, but you can't get them to engage with you?
Well, our volunteers and our staff are basically all have an associated mental illness, and their loved one does. So sometimes they don't have a lot of money and they don't have the tools that they need to be online, to do Zoom and things like that. So we've developed a loan program. We just bought some new computers before this started, and we've taken the old laptops and we've, you know, cleaned them off, and we're getting them ready so that they can be lent to people that want to go to a family support group but doesn't have the resource. The volunteers that do the training and the family support groups, they're staying involved. It's my office and outreach that I'm having problems keeping them involved, encouraged. I have one volunteer that he writes me every week, "Are you open yet? Are you open yet? Can we come back yet?" And I've had others call, you know, every week, but then some of the others, I just can't seem to reach them.
Any thoughts of things other people are doing that might be helpful for Donna to, you know, maybe lasso these people in? In my book, and I have 2 children and an ex-husband that are bipolar, so I understand what that's like. If I were volunteering and you had some updates on things that are happening in the mental illness community, I'd be interested in attending. So if a lot of your volunteers are, you know, have those family issues, keeping me updated on what's happening in the field would be something I would be interested in as someone who would volunteer for NAMI.
That's a good point. We have our weekly message that we put out. We actually have 2 messages we put out weekly. And then we have our quarterly newsletter, where we do a lot of that updating, and our website does a lot of that updating of current issues. And so I you know, maybe what I could do is take what we're using on the website, because maybe people aren't going to the website and looking, and just transfer it into an email and sending it to those folks. That would be a good idea.
What the rest do you think?
So I can I sympathize, Donna, with what you're going through, and I think many of us are in, you know, similar ways. Which is, I love this idea of this topic to talk about. 2 things we've done, and you can adapt for if this works for you. Is we had a program in April and May that we called a KIT, K-I-T, Keeping in Touch During COVID. And we had a team of volunteers who told me, "Hey, I'm dying, I want to do something. Put me to work doing something." So basically I put them to work calling all the other volunteers in one of the specific programs called transportation that is a high need. And we have lost a lot of drivers, which is very typical over the summer, but a lot of people among our volunteers are vulnerable, age and immune wise, so they stop volunteering. So anyhow, so we had this core team of, there were 4 or 5 people. They split up the spreadsheet, had a spreadsheet. They just called and asked a bunch of questions just to make a connection. And I think it was just that. It wasn't any other objective other than just to check up on them. And I think that caring touch, however it is done, is really what people want. You know, they want to know that, they want to be seen and heard. They want to know somebody's out there, you know, and just that little bit it can be a short call, it can be a long call, and they can, and at the time we thought, well, we'll also tell them that we have masks available. So if they are driving and they want a mask, they just come in and get it. So, I mean, we did have that at the end of the call. So we found that to be very, they loved it. They loved it.
Did you have any issues with giving the phone numbers out to?
We did not.
Okay.
We did not. We had a core of 5 people, and we didn't have a problem with that. Would that be an issue for you guys?
I would hope not, but it's something that we're always very cautious with.
Sure. Well, that's true. That's true.
And what was your second idea?
So the other thing that we did was a drive-through volunteer appreciation. And it was one day, 2 to 4 in the afternoon. And at the time I was still recovering from my bike accident, so I wasn't driving. So I gave my staff the idea, and they ran with it. And so I attended. My husband put us through, so I could kind of get that experience from that end. So, you know, they get greeted, and they have a little menu, and we had rispatos. They could pick a flavor rispato. They could pick cupcakes. They got a T-shirt. They got a gift bag, and they got a gift card, and they also they could get their we had sign gypsies. So they did some signs for us for the volunteer event in January. Sign Gypsies did a beautiful job. They gave us some beautiful yard signs that said "Thank you, volunteers," and people could take their picture by that if they wanted to. They'd have to get out. And that was kind of it. It was short and sweet. Just drive through. They had to RSVP, so we knew who was coming. But again, it was a few moments in the car. We appreciate you. We love you. We're grateful you're part of our community. And it was just kind of that little touch, you know. So, and it was safe.
That's a really wonderful idea. I've been fretting on what to do because we usually have our volunteer appreciation dinner in November. So if this is still going on, something like that, instead of spending the money for the food at the restaurant, I can spend the money for things to purchase to give us gifts.
Right. Oh, the other thing we had is raffle. So they could enter, we had like a pass for, what's that place? The golf place, Top Golf. And then we had a couple wine tours, and then golf at Omni Tucson. And they could pick which raffle they wanted to enter. So that was another little, and then so that the money that you have can go to really, and people like that. I mean, volunteers volunteer because they just want to volunteer. They don't want to get stuff, but this was just a nice way to, you know, just to offer something fun and special for them. And they really.
I was reading something not very long ago about the statistics of volunteers, and the high percentage of our volunteers are our donors too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true with ICS, about 70%. The last survey we did showed that about 70%. Yeah.
Those are really helpful.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Good.
I have them written down, and I might call you.
Me too. Only if you need. And I'm happy to brainstorm with you further if you need, but yeah, thank you.
Also, briefly add that we've been giving hourly credit for our volunteers doing things for the community that they wouldn't otherwise be getting credit for, like making masks. We have a lot of our teens and our adult volunteers who've been making masks like crazy to donate to hospitals and other facilities and to the zoo. And we offered hourly credit for them to do that because they're helping their community, even though it's not directly tied to the zoo.
Mhm.
Boy,
I
when
have-
you have volunteer appreciation, you could have people who have made masks and that have specialized masks, if you think about it, because I have a feeling this is still going to be here this fall.
Yeah, it's not going to go away. I will say that I feel absolutely frustrated because I continue to get probably at least one volunteer application every day, and sometimes more than one. And I feel so bad saying, I'm sorry, our office isn't open and there isn't anything that I have for you to do right now. Because we aren't doing any training for additional teachers. We're just using who we have to do what is being done. And so I'm feeling, and I've gotten some really good qualified people that could write grants and other stuff. But are you guys getting a lot of volunteer applications still, or?
We closed down all of our volunteer applications. So on the website, we took all of our applications off. It says due to COVID-19 temporarily suspended, so that we don't get those applications. I would say we still get probably a couple a week just from our general question email asking if we're taking volunteers. What I do sometimes is I'll ask them, because sometimes it's just, I want to volunteer. They don't specify with an animal area or with events or anything. And I will ask them what their skills or what their interests are. And sometimes you come up with some really interesting things that you never think about. That, okay, they make cards, they do all sorts of different skill sets that you would have never thought that you could use that you actually can employ. Right.
I just had a wonderful idea because of what you just said about cards. My mom is 97 and she's in assisted living. And she has been basically in isolation since the 15th of March with no human contact except for the staff. And the staff is really thin because of the disease. But she had to go into isolation because she tested positive for COVID, although she did not have any of the symptoms. But she had to stay there, and it really took its toll on her emotionally and mentally. And I said, okay, everybody that knows her, let's send her a card. So maybe we could do something where we just had the volunteers do cards for people in the assisted living facilities.
Well, that'd keep your volunteers busy. What a great idea. Because
our vecinos did that last month. They created cards for one of the assisted living facilities.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. My mom, I think we were really fortunate because after all this time, my mom was the first one to ever test positive at this facility. So they went like 4.5 months with no cases.
Well, and you hear about how depressed people are in those facilities.
Very. My mom really wants to leave, and I can't take care of her physically. I can't do it, and it just breaks my heart to say, Mom, you have to stay there.
And Donna, that fits in with your mission for NAMI. You're helping people with a kind word, and you're helping them through their mental health,
That's true.
be better, yeah. I also wanted to mention, I do get inquiries normally daily for new volunteers, and we are continuing to accept them. We are doing more and more orientations. I have a part-time assistant, so I'm training her to do the orientations just to get people signed up for food bank and the other things that we do. So we are one of the ones that are open. I get a lot of calls that say, it's so hard finding a place that's accepting volunteers. I said, well, you found one.
So I can direct them to you.
You can.
Okay.
Well, and it tells us that, there are other things we can do that we're not used to doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being creative. Wendy Erica Worden has written us things because her video, and she's from Tucson Power Electric. So let me tell you what she said. She gets better connection, so she's just listening. And she's listening to see what the need is for volunteers, both remote and in person. And she wrote down here some comment about remembering the sign gypsy thing and how how cool that was to get your picture taken by those signs, Tori. But she also said, how about if you ask people who want to volunteer what their special skill sets are, and see if there's a special hobby that they could contribute to your constituents. And maybe that's triggered by making masks or doing things for the animals. You talked about making things for the animals. Or they have a special hobby they could contribute to your constituents. They may come up with some great ideas that you haven't thought of. And I'm just thinking, Donna, if you have somebody who will write grants, grab that person and have them get grants for you. Because you could get grants for some of the things you're doing, like with computers for people who don't have access to do that. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Volunteer Clearinghouse, because that's, I'm not just representing SAVMA, but I work with a Volunteer Clearinghouse, and we have 100 organizations that we represent, and we recruit volunteers for them. And we do this volunteer hot ups once a month, and I'm sharing my screen with you to show you some of the virtual volunteer opportunities that some of our organizations have. Heartland Hospice is asking people to make craft projects for their hospice patients or stuff patients. And Parkinson's Support Group is asking people if they will organize Zoom games. And I know someone who does Zoom bingo online with people who are isolated. Last month, we had two of our board members did a mixer, and they were so creative, and this was just for SAVMA people, but they did a trivia game where they asked certain things like, what's the state bird of Arizona, and just some things that some people would know, but some people wouldn't. And you know, they had prizes that they could send to people for this trivia game. Then they also did something that you could do online, and they did a scavenger hunt. So you had to go in the room you were in or wherever you were and find something that represented your job, something that represented your family. They had different categories. So that's another way to maybe just involve volunteers so that they each connect with each other, or some of your constituents. Friends of the Library here need people to help with their web development. We've had people ask for people who can write grants, and that's what I said, grab that grant writer. People who could serve on their board, people who could do finance. If you want a brochure redone, or like you're saying, things that you do in your office when you're not, you know, people aren't there, policy manuals, new brochures, graphics for your annual report, those kinds of things you can ask people to do. And here's another one, volunteer at home doing social media marketing. Have somebody who will, you know, get you on Twitter, get you on Instagram, get you on Facebook, or at least keep those up, because people can do those virtually and they don't mind doing them. This was fostering the Paws Patroller asked, they've got a plethora of kittens, so they need people to, you know, foster them. The same thing with the Animal League, because it cuts down on the number of animals they have to care for. And then this is somebody who wants somebody on their board, but I just wanted to share that with you so you actually know that you're not the only ones doing that. Tori, you just posted something online here. Do you want to comment on that? Because
Sure, I can. I wasn't sure what time we were splitting out. I just wanted to make sure you guys know that there's a resource, 9/11 Day at Home, where we have a government grant from Corporation for National Community Service, and this is their way nationwide of supporting 9/11 Day of Service. Normally it's like things you do in the community, but they have a lot of virtual volunteer opportunities, ideas, and you can also put whatever you guys are doing, whatever individual groups are doing, you can post that on their website too. So that's just another resource I wanted to be sure to let you guys know. And then, you know what, Diane, I'll let our SAVMA group know of this. I'm working with other project directors of grants to do this. It's right around 9/11 Day of Service as well. It's for veterans. And it's going to be hosted to have better a community game time and support of veteran families. So inviting veteran families to join in, and then there'll be different hosts of the game rooms. And for the 18 and above, the game is going to be Shut the Box. I don't know what it is, but apparently it's something that's easy enough for that age group. And then little kids will have different games. So we'll get those information out as I know what it is, but I just wanted to get that out there.
I have a resource that somebody might be able to use. I know of an organization, and I can send the information to you, that has about $250,000 they have to spend by the end of the year, but it has to be dedicated towards helping veterans. So if you have any needs in that area, email me and I'll send you the information.
well, I want to thank all of you. We're getting to the 2 o'clock time, but can you see what an advantage it is to have a group think? And I just really appreciate all the ideas that you've shared with us. I can send you the emails of everybody online and do a follow-up, but stay in touch with us, send us your ideas, and maybe we'll do another brainstorm chat on another topic. So I so appreciate all of your great ideas. What a cool group. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you